two phases Sunday against the Washington Redskins. On one hand, you got this dominating, turnover-producing defense that was able to get after Donovan McNabb and cause him to make mistakes. And on the other hand, you had this horrid, implosive, turnover-inducing offense that didn't look like they wanted to win the game half the time. But the point is, the Bears are 4-3. They are in first place in the NFC North. They have a half-game lead over the Green Bay Packers. And despite their very discouraging play the last couple of weeks, the Bears are still very much alive in their hopes of making the playoffs, because not only is the NFC completely wide open and bad, but all they have to do is win their division. And right now, it doesn't seem like it's going to be that hard. I mean, you have Green Bay, who's suffering massive amount of injuries. Minnesota doesn't look like they're going anywhere. Detroit, don't count them out entirely, but I don't think they have enough to make a run. But a lot of things went wrong on Sunday. Too many to count. The Bears were in that. It was ugly on both sides for the Redskins and the Bears. And I don't think either team deserved to win that game. But the point is, the Bears lost another close game to another bad team. And basically they lost 3 of their last 4 games. And that's not good. And I don't think this bye could have come at a better time, to tell you the truth. But I'm going to break down some of the things that went wrong for the Bears against the Redskins. Let's start out positively. The defense came ready to play on Sunday against the Redskins. DJ Moore had a pick 6 of a Donovan McNabb pass that was tipped by Israel Donajay, and Moore returned it to the house. Moore is having quite an impact in the second year. He didn't really do that much as a rookie, but he's really stepping up this season. And he would have had a second one, but there was a delay of game called on Washington, which called it back. And that is one of possibly many calls that have wiped out a score that probably would have secured the Bears the victory, because towards the end of the game, Washington's offense couldn't do anything. Defense had their way with Donovan McNabb. In the past, McNabb has tended to get the better of the Bears defense, but they actually stepped up and they had 3 sacks on him. The Redskins fumbled 6 times. They were getting tons of pressure on McNabb. Perhaps the one shining moment for the Bears offense was that they finally converted a 3rd down for the first time since the Green Bay game 4 weeks ago. I mean, the crowd was loving it. They basically were celebrating like they just won the game in overtime. And what do you know? The Bears had another 3rd down conversion later in the game. 2 in a row, or 2 in one game. Now we're just getting spoiled here. Perhaps the most controversial thing about the game on Sunday was the Jay Cutler fumble, which wasn't technically a fumble if you watch the replay, and the fact that Lovie Smith decided not to challenge it when in fact he challenged the previous play when Earl Bennett was about 1 yard shy at the end zone after a long pass from Cutler. I actually agree with Lovie challenging that first one, because if you've noticed anything, the Bears offense has not been able to punch it in from the 1 yard line. They are 0 for 10 with the Cutler fumble. They haven't been able to get into the end zone, so I think he was trying to get the offense some points, basically. But the fact is, the very next play, when Cutler quarterback sneaked it, and basically you saw him stretching out and the ball crossed the goal line, and then he fumbled, and the refs actually ruled it was just a fumble, and Washington recovered. And he didn't throw the challenge flag, which that was, for me, that was the changing point of the game. Later in the week, Lovie Smith would admit that he should have thrown the challenge flag. And you kind of wonder, do they get to see? Apparently, they didn't show the replay on the Jumbotron. And this is at Soldier Field. This is a home game for the Bears. They always show that. And then that's when, Lovie would be like, oh, I got my flag. Or if a player, Cutler should have went up to him and been like, Lovie, I got over, I crossed it. But the fact that Lovie Smith did not challenge that was the biggest moment in the game for me. Jay Cutler has struggled immensely since he returned from his concussion a few weeks ago. He turned the ball over 5 times on Sunday, 4 interceptions, and that fumble on the goal line, which should have been reversed. It should have been touchdown. The fact is, Cutler has not been playing like the Pro Bowl quarterback the Bears thought they had traded for. Yes, you got to have a supporting cast around him, but he's supposed to be a leader on this team. There was that pick 6 to D'Angelo Hall. he gave up. He didn't go over. He just walked the sidelines. That is not what you look for in a leader. Cutler needs to be a leader for this team. He needs to look like he gives a crap. I'm hoping this bye week will be good for him. Mike Mart says even the best need time to rest. Well, Cutler certainly needs some time to rest and to think about his play and how he can improve that in his decision making. Johnny Knox had a career day with 6 catches, but the interesting fact is that 3 of Cutler's interceptions were balls that were intended for Knox. And if you actually go back and watch that, 2 of those were actually Knox's fault, not Cutler's, of the interceptions. Knox, he seemed to pull up on a few of the routes or just stand there and wait for the ball. Even the touchdown catch in the end zone, he was just standing back there waiting for the ball. And if the defender had been able to make a move, that would have been intercepted. I saw the same thing on the other interception to Devin Hester. They are just standing there waiting for the ball when they should be going for the ball and making a move to kind of break free. That falls on the receivers as well. But, it's the whole offense really needs to get it together. The offensive line probably had their best half of football in the second half against Washington. It was actually Cutler who could not make the throws towards the end of the game. But once again, they were subpar in the first half. They allowed another 4 sacks on Cutler very early in the game. And they have allowed 31, and they're on pace to allow 66 this season, which is not a franchise record, 66, which is something you don't want. But it is encouraging because they're saying Roberto Garza should be ready to play come November 7th when the Bears play the Bills in Toronto, which makes you wonder what's going to happen with Chris Williams. But it is encouraging to see the offensive line had perhaps their best half of football, that second half against Washington. And there's going to be no immediate effective changes on that line, but even the smallest thing like that is very encouraging. There were 6 turnovers in the second half of the Bears. Cutler with his interceptions and his fumble, and Matt Forte basically fumbled the ball on another. It always seemed to happen when the Bears offense was driving down the field, and you're like, oh my God, they're getting it going, they're going to score here. And then they turn the ball over. With all the drama surrounding the Cutler fumble and how he's been playing and whether or not we should trust him anymore, comes the fact that the Bears did not run the football again. They passed 34 times and they ran 16 times, 4 more times than last week. Mike Martz needs to find some consistency in this offense. He needs to get Chester Taylor and Matt Forte utilized, especially Taylor, who we went out in free agency and we went to sign him, and it was supposed to be like, ha, Minnesota, we got a productive back, we're going to throw him in your face. And they had not used him. Taylor, he may be older, but he has low mileage on him. He's very fresh, and they're not utilizing him to his full potential. And I think that, Mart's enticing to get together on this bye week and discuss what they're going to do to get this run game going. You don't have to run the ball all the time, but you need to get it going effectively so that you're not putting all this pressure on your quarterback and on your offensive line to the fact that the line has to drop back and pass block for about 30 times and they only get to run block about 12 times. That lack of consistency on this line that is already struggling is not something that's going to help them. You want to know the really sad thing about this is that it looked like Washington didn't want to win the game either. They fumbled 6 times, and actually the one thing about the defense is that they only recovered 1 of those, and that's big. Lovie Smith reiterated that. They picked off McNabb 3 times. It looked like Washington did not want to win that game either, but the fact of the matter is that someone had to, and in the end, it was the D'Angelo Hall pick 6 that basically sealed the win for them. Because on offense, the only thing the Bears' offense was asked to do was to not turn the ball over, because, basically Washington's offense couldn't do anything. It looked like they only got a field goal, and the Bears' defense was owning them, and that was the one changing point. I don't think either of these teams deserved to win. Ultimately, someone had to, and of course, she would not be surprised, it was the Bears. Lovie Smith says that this bye week is going to be a way to evaluate personnel and scheme I don't know if that's reflecting on possibly the run-pass game and finding some common ground there. But this is going to be a very long bye week, and honestly, if the Bears lose to Buffalo next week, I think their season possibly is over. They have a very tough stretch down in the rest of the season, basically. But I'll talk about that next week about in the bye video. But yeah, it's gonna be a very long bye week. It's a much needed bye week. It can come at a better time, though. The Bears are gonna have an extra week to sit in this loss, and it's not pretty. We can only hope that something good comes out of this bye week, though we shouldn't get our hopes up. This is the Bears after all. This has been Alyssa with Bears Bits. Have a good bye week. See you next week.